Hello guys, welcome back to LR Anime. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is Explanation of Battle Through the Heavens episode number 152 based on novel. So let's start. Within the stone tower, Xiao Yan watched the old figure, who was shutting his eyes tightly while being engulfed by the flame. His heart sighed in relief when he did not sense any unexpected occurrence. Currently, the body had already been successfully refined. The next step had nothing to do with Xiao Yang. As long as Yarolaro was able to successfully and perfectly merge with this body, he would truly be able to revive. Xiao Yang rubbed the cold sweat off his forehead. The continuous refinement of the body during these few days had been a great exhaustion to Xiao Yang. Fortunately, there were quite a number of medicinal pills within his storage ring that provided him with a great stamina. It was due to this that he had successfully endured through it. "Teacher, the subsequent matters will depend on you," Xiao Yang softly muttered. After which, he sat on a stone platform by the side. His eyes were slowly shut as he entered his training mode and began to recover from the enormous exhaustion that was created during this period of time. After Xiao Yang entered his training mode, the stone tower once again descended into a silence. Only the low and deep sound of a burning flame resounded within the stone tower with a rhythm. Half a day swiftly flew past after Xiao Yang shut his eyes and trained. Only after the do qi that his body had exhausted was completely recovered did he slowly open his eyes. A faint glow flashed across his dark black eyes and he immediately became quiet. After recovering from his condition, Xiao Yang's eyes glanced towards the stone platform. However, he only saw that Yarolaro still had his eyes shut. Not the slightest activity was emitted. Xiao Yang frowned slightly when he saw this. However, he did not panic. This occurrence was ordinary. The various things used on this body were not ordinary. It was not as easy as one imagined for Yarolaro to completely merge with them. Currently, my strength still remains at the 1-star Dozun level. However, the benefits that these couple of big battles brought me is quite great. After careful observation, I should have reached the peak of a 1-star Dozun. Xiao Yang withdrew his thoughts and fell into a silence. After having swallowed the 3000 burning flame, Xiao Yang's strength might have soared, but the speed after this soaring had once again returned to normal. According to this step-by-step training, it was likely that Xiao Yang would at least require another half a year in order to reach a 2-star Dozun. However, his relationship with the Hall of Soul becoming increasingly worse and had even ended up exchanging blows with them. Even though he was still fine until now, Xiao Yang understood that the true experts from the Hall of Soul had yet to appear. When these experts appeared, he would perhaps be out of luck. Therefore, he must raise his strength quickly in the face of the pressure from this enormous mountain known as the Hall of Soul. From Xiao Yang's perspective, the fastest method to raise his strength was undoubtedly to swallow Heavenly Flame. However, he had already obtained the 3000 burning flame and he did not have any information about other heavenly flames. Xiao Yang did covert the sea heart flame of old Mu Jiyu. However, ever since he had advanced to a Dozun, that old fellow appeared to have disappeared. Hence, he had also abandoned the thought of snatching the sea heart flame. Heavenly flame. Xiao Yang's finger gently rubbed against each other. A moment later, he was suddenly startled. He flicked his finger over his storage ring and a couple of ancient maps appeared in his hand. These 3 ancient map fragments were naturally the mysterious map that Xiao Yang had obtained many years ago. It recorded the information of the Heavenly Flame ranked 3rd on the Heavenly Flame ranking, purifying demonic lotus flame. With the increase in Xiao Yang's strength, Xiao Yang was also aware of the strength and rarity of these heavenly flames ranked at the front of the Heavenly Flame ranking. This purifying demonic lotus flame was known for its mysteriousness. Even Yarolaro had never seen this kind of heavenly flame. Xiao Yang had also checked through a great amount of information during these years and was similarly unable to obtain even the slightest news related to the purifying demonic lotus flame. If it was not because of the ancient map in his hand being the evidence, it was likely that even Xiao Yang would doubt that the so-called purifying demonic lotus flame existed in this world. 3 maps, it is still impossible to see anything. Xiao Yang carefully placed those 3 map fragments in front of him. He carefully studied them for a while, only to end up shaking his head helplessly. The Dochi continent was incomparably large. He was unable to tell where the location of the terrain recorded on the map was. Those winding and bending route caused Xiao Yang to have a headache looking at it. Looks like I must find the last ancient map. Otherwise, no one will ever know just where this purifying demonic lotus flame is located. Xiao Yang had no choice but to give up after some futile deep thought. His face was dispirited. He was already blessed by the heavens in order to be able to obtain these 3 ancient maps. That final ancient map was something that he had no clue about. He had also failed to obtain even the slightest information related to this ancient map during these years of searching. He wondered if the last map actually existed in this world. Now, all I can do is to pray that I will continue to be lucky. Xiao Yang sighed softly. He carefully kept these 3 ancient maps. No matter what the case was, This thing was related to the purifying demonic lotus flame. Even though the chances of him obtaining it was extremely low, Xiao Yang would still not give up. After keeping the ancient maps, Xiao Yang hesitated for a moment before clenching his hand. A couple of jade white bone fragments appeared in his hand. These bone fragments were naturally the Do Sheng bone fragments that he had obtained from the ancient remains. Do Sheng, at expert at this level, already possessed a great might to destroy the world. Just by stomping his foot, a mountain would be annihilated. This kind of expert had already successfully understood creation. Every part of his body was something that an ordinary person dreamed to obtain. It was not an exaggeration to say that one could transform into a dragon and soar to the sky if one obtained a little of it. Take this Do Sheng bone marrow as an example. If it was given to a baby or a child less than 5 years old, even if the child was a useless person before, his bones would be refined after consuming it and turn into a genius. It might be difficult to believe in such an effect, but it was indeed the truth. Xiao Yang's hand carefully rubbed these few jade white bone fragments. A moment later, he widened his mouth. Purple-brown flame was spat out and wrapped around these bone fragments. A frightening temperature spread immediately. These bone fragments were extremely hard. It was not easy to shatter them. If it was not because Xiao Yang possessed the strong heavenly flame like the 3000 lotus heart flame, it was likely that he could only simply watch the Do Sheng bone fragment even if he knew that the Do Sheng bone marrow was hidden within them. Of course, even with the aid of the heavenly flame, it was not an easy task to remove the Do Sheng bone marrow from the bones. Fortunately, Xiao Yang was already mentally prepared. Therefore, his heart did not feel the least bit impatient when he saw that the rock-line bones did not move even a little under the fierce burning flames. Instead, he steadily raised the temperature and slowly burned the bones. 2 days passed in the blink of an eye under this slow calcining by Xiao Yang. Xiao Yang once again withdrew from his training mode 2 days later. He watched the bone within the flame that had gradually turned grey in color. An involuntary smile appeared. His hand was extended into the flame before pressing gently. After his finger pressed on the grey bone, one could hear a puff sound. The bone became soft before transforming into grey bone ashes that slowly scattered downwards. After these bone ashes scattered, 3 thumb-size cream white gel-like things appeared in front of Xiao Yang's eyes. These 3 gel-like things were extremely small. Their surface possessed a colloid-like substance. When one's gaze looked through this layer, one could vaguely see the liquid slowly flowing within them. A wave of shocking mysterious energy quietly seeped out, causing a heat to gradually surge up Xiao Yang's eyes. Xiao Yang took out a jade bottle from his storage ring and carefully placed 2 Do Sheng bone marrow gel-like particles into it. After which, his finger pressed on the third one. He hesitated for a moment before gently stuffing it into his mouth. The gel particles had basically dissolved in an instant. Before he could wait for Xiao Yang to recover, a ocean-like majestic pure energy poured down like floodwater. It followed his throat and poured down. After which, his whizzed and swept apart and surged towards the 4 limbs and bones of Xiao Yang. The frightening energy that poured in abruptly caused Xiao Yang's body temperature to be raised swiftly. Curling white smoke rose on his head. Xiao Yang hurriedly sat down when he sensed the transformation of his body. He swiftly entered his training mode and began to refine these sudden majestic energy. This refinement continued for 3 days before Xiao Yang tightly shut eyes slowly opened. He sensed the unpresented feeling of being filled with energy and involuntarily inhaled a gentle breath of air. Based on his senses, he had directly broke through from the 1-star level to the 2-star level. The miraculous effort that was present within a bone marrow gel piece was something that an ordinary Tier 7 and Tier 8 medicinal pill could not be compared with. There were not many medicinal pill that could raise the strength of an expert Dozun by 1 star. He exhaled a long breath of air and raised his eyes to look at the stone platform. Yarrow Larrow at that spot continued to keep his eyes shut. There was a sign of it waking up. It seemed that the body this time around was too strong. Even with Teacher's strength, he was unable to easily control it. Xiao Yang fell into a deep thought. He helplessly shook his head and mused for a moment before deciding to exit the tower first and allowed Yarrow Larrow to complete the merger here. When Xiao Yang had just made his mind, he suddenly sensed that the entire stone tower violently trembled at this moment. Soon after, a cold cry that was filled with murderous intent sounded over this sky in a mighty manner. Falling Star Pavilion. Hand over Xiao Yang and Yarrow Chen. Otherwise, today, I will wash this place in blood. Bang! Xiao Yang's cry spread in a vast and mighty manner. Xiao Yang's expression changed intensely. His body suddenly stood up and his eyes looked towards the stone platform in a dense manner. Hall of Soul, has it finally arrived? All the disciples on the Falling Star Mountain stood up at this moment. Their gazes were surprised as they looked at the distant sky. Due to the defensive formation that was naturally formed by the meteorite, they were unable to see the situation outside. However, they were vaguely able to sense that the Falling Star Pavilion seemed to be faced with a great calamity. Feng Zunja and the others were gathered on a square on the mountain top. Their expressions were grave as they looked at the sky. The Hall of Soul have come. Tianhua Zunja knitted his brows and spoke in a deep voice. There are many strong auras outside. This time around, it seems that the Hall of Soul really intend to wash the Falling Star Pavilion in blood as a deterrence to others. A solemnness appeared on Little Fairy Doctor's face as she spoke. Feng Zunja nodded slightly. However, his expression was calm. He was aware that this day would arrive sooner or later. It was just a matter of time. Feng Zunja slowly stepped forward. The seal in his hand changed and the falling star array in the sky rippled. Immediately, the space slowly became distorted and the situation outside clearly appeared in front of everyone's eyes. Hiss. Everyone involuntarily inhaled a breath of cool air when they saw the scene in the outside world. Currently, the area outside of the Falling Star Pavilion had been surrounded by black fog that permeated the sky. Nearly 100 figures stood on the black fog in the sky a short distance in front of them. Dark and dense eyes penetrated through the formation and saw Feng Zunja's group that was hiding within it. Old Ghost Zhai Xing. This old ghost has also come. Little Fairy Doctor glanced and found a familiar face amongst the many black-clothed people. Her face turned cold as she said, "There is also the Hei Bai Tianzuan whom we had met back then." Feng Zunja shook his head and slowly said. The faces of Little Fairy Doctor's group involuntarily changed when they heard these words of his. Their gaze looked towards where Feng Zunja was watching and did indeed see two old men in black and white clothes standing there. From the appearance of these two, they were surprisingly the Hei Bai Tianzuan whom they had met once at the Death Soul Mountain range. 3 elite Tianzuns had actually arrived. This Hall of Soul really seems to think highly of us. Feng Zunja let out a long exhale as he said, "Pavilion Chief Feng, what should we do now? The Hall of Soul has launched a big campaign. Moreover, from this momentum, it seems that they are not merely here to demand for someone." An elder from the Falling Star Pavilion spoke with a somewhat terrified expression. "What is there to panic about? The Hall of Soul is not some kind association. They are planning to wash the Falling Star Pavilion in blood. Otherwise, why would they directly dispatch 3 elite Tianzuns?" Feng Zunja frowned and chided. After which, his eyes looked around the star realm. He watched those thousands of Falling Star Pavilion disciples and spoke in a deep voice. Therefore, there is no other path except to engage in an all-out fight. Everyone here are elders within the Falling Star Pavilion. Today, the Falling Star Pavilion is faced with a calamity that we have never faced before. All of you plan to. Feng Zunja's searing gazes turned towards the many elders of the Falling Star Pavilion and said, "Pavilion Chief Feng, the Falling Star Pavilion is our route. The amount of effort we have put in for it is not less than anyone. Regardless of whoever it is that wish to destroy it, we will all fight to our deaths against them." The many elders had solemn expressions as they cried out in unison. "Good. I, Feng Xian, really have good eyesight. In that case, let out fight till our deaths. I wish to see just how dominating this Hall of Soul can be." Feng Zunja cried out with a great force, causing the morale of all the Falling Star Pavilion's disciples to be braced. From the perspective of many people here, the Falling Star Pavilion was their route. If it was destroyed by others, what face would they have to roam the Central Plains in the future? Feng Zunja, the old me advise you to obediently hand the people over. This Falling Star Pavilion's great formation cannot protect you. Old Ghost Zhai Xing's eyes were dark and dense as he looked at the space below. Although it was merely a sea of trees, he understood that this was only because of the Falling Star Pavilion great formation. The cold cry sounded but no response was given. Old Ghost Zhai Xing involuntarily laughed out coldly when he saw this. His gaze turned towards the black-white clothed elders by the side and said, "Let's attack together and break the formation. The activity from this trip of ours is too big. It is likely that the eyes from quite a number of factions had followed us. Therefore, we must use a bloody method to suppress the Falling Star Pavilion and use this opportunity to allow the other factions on the Central Plains to be aware that our Hall of Soul is not something that just anyone is qualified to offend." That black-white Tianzuns nodded slightly when they heard this. Their gazes glanced below before raising their hands at the same time. After which, they violently grabbed the space below. After the hands of those 3 were clenched, a frightening spatial strength hurriedly spread over the place. 3 invisible large hands grabbed heavily onto the empty space. A light surged immediately and an invisible light barrier containing the glow of the stars appeared in front of everyone's eyes from nowhere. "Break it!" Old Ghost Zhai Xing coldly cried out. He suddenly clenched his hand violently. That invisible large hand violently smashed onto the invisible light barrier. Bang! A fist landed and numerous ripples spread on the light barrier. A loud rumbling sound resounded over the sky in a thunder-like manner. Bang! Following closely behind Old Ghost Zhai Xing, the frightening wind from the black-white Tianzuns also swept down from the sky. Immediately, it poured onto the light in a storm-like manner. Under this fierce attack by 3 elite Dozuns who had reached the 5-star Dozun level, that light had become shaky. All the disciples within the Falling Star Pavilion looked at the repeatedly trembling light barrier from within the star realm. They suddenly held their weapons in their hands with a greater force. The Great Formation is unable to endure the attacks from the three of them. Feng Zunja watched the light barrier that was about to be shattered. His expression sunk slightly as he said, "The Hall of Soul has sent 3 Tianzuns over this time around. There are also 7 Dozuns. Quite a number of Dozongs has also come." Feng Zunja's eyes flickered as he spoke in a deep voice. The 7 Dozuns and the other experts are not considered troublesome to deal with. However, Old Ghost Jai Xing Trio is a great trouble. His voice paused before suddenly clenched his teeth and spoke, "I will block both the black-white Tianzuns. How can you alone be a match for the 2 of them?" Little Fairy Doctor and the rest frowned immediately when they heard this. The other elders of the Falling Star Pavilion also had a drastic change in expressions as they continuously objected. "There is no need to defeat them. All that we need to do is to delay the time until Yarrow Chen successfully exit his retreat." Feng Zunja inhaled a deep breath and said. Everyone became quiet when they heard this. It had been half a month since Xiao Yan and Yarrow Laro had entered the stone tower. However, not even the slightest news was transmitted from it. Just what use this little bit of time was to them. "I will deal with Old Ghost Jai Xing. Leave one of the black-white Tianzuns to the Sky Demon puppet. As for the other Tianzuan, Little Fairy Doctor and Tianhua Zunja will join hands to deal with him." While everyone were quietly and helpless, a calm voice suddenly resounded. Immediately, that skinny figure that caused Little Fairy Doctor's group to calm down also slowly appeared in the midair above the mountain. That is, Junior Pavilion Chief Xiao Yang. He has exited from the retreat. The attention of all of the disciples within the Falling Star Pavilion was braced when Xiao Yang appeared. During these years, Xiao Yang could be considered to have really made a name for himself in the Central Plains. Everyone within the Falling Star Pavilion were also aware of his strength. His appearance was just like a great strength, causing the morale of the Falling Star Pavilion to surge. "You have come out. What about Yarrow Chen?" A joy immediately surfaced on Feng Zunja's face when he saw Xiao Yang appeared. He hurriedly asked the question. "He still needs time." Xiao Yang slowly shook his head. His gaze looked at the repeatedly shaking light barrier. A densely cold-faced Old Ghost Jai Xing was outside of the light barrier. There was a cold glint flashing across his dark black eyes when he did so. This old ghost was really too hateful. Time and time again this old ghost had come and find trouble. This time around, he will definitely not allow this old ghost to escape. "Leave the last Tianzuan to me. Allow Little Fairy Doctor Jejia and the rest to block the other elite Dozuns." Qing Lin by the side hesitated for a moment before she suddenly spoke softly. Little Fairy Doctor was startled when she heard this. She glanced at Qing Lin, smiled warmly and said, "It's fine, old Mr. Yarrow and I can block him." Xiao Yang's eyes also turned towards Qing Lin. The latter smiled at him. She crossed her hands together and said, "Young Master Xiao Yang, you can be rest assured. I can block him." Xiao Yang knitted his brows slightly when he saw Qing Lin's insistence. Finally, he nodded slightly. Although Qing Lin's strength was only that of a 1-star Dozun, she possessed a mysterious treasure like the triple jade-green snake flower pupils. Moreover, her body also hid the soul of an ancient heaven serpent. Such a ferocious being was something that even Xiao Yang was unusually afraid of. From the looks of her appearance, it was likely that she was not merely putting up a brave front. Little Fairy Doctor was also startled when she saw Xiao Yang actually agreeing with Qing Lin. Immediately, she felt helpless. However, her heart was also a little rest assured. She understood that Xiao Yang was not a reckless person. He would not allow Qing Lin to fight with a Hall of Soul Tianzuan without reason. Since he did this, it was likely that he had his reasons and his confidence. Xiao Yang waved his hand. 11 puppets appeared in the midair. After which, his gaze was lifted and he slowly said, "Open the Great Formation. It is about to be broken." Feng Zunja also nodded when he heard this. His hand seal changed and the light barrier in the sky trembled before slowly scattering. Following the disappearance of this light barrier, the entire place gradually became dark. The black fog that permeated the sky also appeared in front of everyone's gaze in close proximity. Old Ghost Jai Xing smiled coldly as he watched the slowly scattering light barrier in the sky. Immediately, his gaze penetrated through the space and looked towards the skinny figure standing on the mountain top. His dense voice carried a bone-chilling coldness as it resounded over the entire sky. "Xiao Yang, I have said that we will meet each other again. This time around, the old me will see just who will be able to rescue you." Xiao Yang was expressionless upon hearing the dense ferocious laughter of Old Ghost Jai Xing. His body slowly rose into the air and looked towards the black fog that spread over the sky. It was likely that such a large lineup had already attracted the attention of quite a number of factions. Based on his guess, it was likely that the area outside of the Falling Star Pavilion was already filled with the spies of other factions. There were countless number of hidden powerful factions within the Central Plains. The fight between these factions was also extremely intense. The Falling Star Pavilion had received many challenges since it was established to become one of the 4 great pavilions. However, this time around, it was undoubtedly facing its most dangerous situation in its history. If they could endure through it, the reputation of the Falling Star Pavilion would definitely soar and toss the other 3 pavilions far behind it. If it was unable to do so, it was likely that the Falling Star Pavilion will forever disappear on this central plains. Old Ghost, your nonsense is really as much as it has ever been. Just attack and quickly finish them off. You have already failed a couple of times. If you end up failing again this time around, you should be clearer than anyone else just what your fate will be. The black-white Tianzuns in the sky glanced at Old Ghost Zhai Xing and spoke faintly. Humph, your reminder is unnecessary. Hearing this, Old Ghost Zhai Xing's face sunk as he spoke coldly. Although he spoke in this manner, a dark denseness also gradually appeared in Old Ghost Zhai Xing's eyes. He stared at Xiao Yan, who was suspended in the midair, and laughed coldly. After which, he suddenly waved his hand. Wash the Falling Star Pavilion in blood. Understood. Hearing the cold cry of Old Ghost Zhai Xing, the many experts from the Falling Star Pavilion also cried out in unison. Powerful Do Chi spluttered out. Immediately, black chains shot explosively towards the star realm from all directions while emitting waves of clang sound. Charge! A deafening murderous cry resounded over this entire place. The originally peaceful star realm swiftly became a place filled with a killing aura. Xiao Yang's figure was suspended in the midair. His gaze stared intently at Old Ghost Zhai Xing. Those Hall of Soul experts scattered on their own when they had reached 100 feet from him and rushed into the star realm. Brat, this time around, the old me will definitely personally capture you back to the Hall of Soul. At that time, the old me will let you understand what it means by a fate worse than death. Old Ghost Zhai Xing's face was filled with a savage viciousness as he looked at Xiao Yang. His foot suddenly stomped on the empty air and he directly charged explosively towards Xiao Yang. When Old Ghost Zhai Xing attacked, the black-white Tianzuns exchanged gazes with each other and nodded slightly. Their feet stepped on the empty air and entered the star realm. When their footsteps landed, an ocean-like vast and mighty Do Chi slowly swept out, causing the energy of this entire world to fluctuate. Just when the black-white Tianzuns were planning on entering the star realm and engage in a massacre, a golden light rushed over. After which, it charged straight towards the both of them. A puppet that can fight against a 4-star Do Zun is really rare. Leave it to me. The black-clothed Black Tianzuan glanced at the sky demon puppet that was charging over aggressively. A faint surprise flashed across his eyes as he spoke. It looks like the massacre can only be done by me. White Tianzuan laughed in a dense manner. His body moved and he made a detour around the sky demon puppet that had rushed over. However, he had just taken a couple of steps when a delicate small figure blocked the space in front of him and laughingly spoke to him. Old man, allow me to be your opponent. White Tianzuan was startled when he saw this pretty girl, who had suddenly appeared in front of him. His eyes remained indifferent and was not the least bit affected by the latter's status or appearance. He nodded slightly and his shoulders shook. Vast and mighty aura surged out explosively and swept towards Qing Lin. Qing Lin hurriedly focused her attention when she saw that this old fellow had delivered a killing blow as his first attack. 3 black dots slowly enlarged deep within her emerald eyes. After which, they turned into 3 demonic emerald flowers that surrounded her eyes before rotating slowly. An demonic and unusual energy ripple swiftly spread. Triple jade green snake flower pupils. This White Tianzuan was also an extremely experienced person. He had sensed the change in Qing Lin's eyes the moment it occurred. He was immediately startled as he exclaimed, "You have guessed correctly." Qing Lin smiled sweetly. The demonic and unusual glow within her eyes rotated rapidly. The Do Chi pressure that surged over from all directions was resolved. How unexpected. This world actually does possess such a mysterious eye. Unfortunately, you are too weak. White Tianzuan laughed faintly. His body moved and a couple of after-images appeared in the sky. He appeared in front of Qing Lin almost instantly. Vast and mighty energy gathered on his hand. After which, it grabbed towards Qing Lin. That may not be certain. Qing Lin laughed. Her delicate seemingly boneless waist was gently twisted and her body escaped this restraint by White Tianzuan's hand and she swiftly pulled back. Seeing Qing Lin dodge, a chillness appeared within White Tianzuan's eyes. He let out a snort and rushed outwards. Bang! During the time that Bai Tianzuan and Qing Lin began to exchange blows, Xiao Yang and Old Ghost Zhai Xing also violently collided together like meteorites. Frightening Do Chi ripples swept apart in the midair, shaking those surrounding mountain peak until large mountain rocks fell continuously. At this moment, Xiao Yang and Old Ghost Zhai Xing had completely engaged in a head-on clash. The current him had already formally advanced to a 2-star Do Zun level after having swallowed the Do Sheng bone marrow. Adding the 3 changes of the Skyfire 3 mysterious change that had been activated, Xiao Yang already possessed the qualification to battle a 5-star Dozun head-on. He no longer need to be careful of the other party's attack like in the past. The one who felt this change of Xiao Yang most deeply was his opponent, Old Ghost Jiaxing. The current him felt increasingly shocked within his heart each time he exchanged blows with Xiao Yang. When he had first met Xiao Yang back then, the latter was unable to even receive a palm from him head-on. Subsequently, within a short 1 year, the person, who was an ant in his eyes back then, had already possessed the qualification and strength to fight head-on with him. It had only been a short while, but the strength of this brat had advanced again. If this continues, it is likely that even I will not be a match for him the next time we meet. Old Ghost Jiaxing's heart was shocked and furious as he sensed this sudden improvement of Xiao Yang. This feeling to watching himself being surpassed was really not a good one. This was especially the case when this person was his opponent. He really felt that it was difficult to eat and sleep. The current Xiao Yang had clearly reached a stage where Old Ghost Jiaxing had difficulty eating and sleeping. A desire to kill surged within Old Ghost Jiaxing's heart. His palm wind also became increasingly sharp. The vast and mighty Do Qi within his body whizzed and circulated like a monstrous floodwater. Finally, it followed the veins and spluttered out. Space cracked wherever the palm wind passed. Numerous dark black spatial crack lines spread apart, appearing like a ferocious large mouth. The attacks of Old Ghost Jiaxing, which had suddenly become sharp, also attracted Xiao Yang's attention. His face revealed a cold smile. Although his strength had at the very most reached that of a 4-star Dozun after using the Skyfire 3 mysterious change, he possessed the help of the Heavenly Flame. This increase had caused him to no longer need to be afraid of Old Ghost Jiaxing. Bang! 2 figures flashed like a ghost in the midair. Each time they made contact, a shocking loud sound would erupt. Waves after waves of wild and violent energy storm spread out continuously and resounded in the sky like muffled thunder. This intense battle condition caused one to be greatly speechless when looking at it. At this moment, the interior of the star realm was basically filled with murderous cries. Densely cold black fog spread over the place. The many falling star pavilion disciples were clustered together. They might not be a match for the experts of the Hall of Soul in a one-on-one match. However, when hundreds or thousands of them gathered together, even these experts were unable to gain victory within a short while. Feng Zunjia, Little Fairy Doctor and the rest had also joined the battle at this moment. Quite a number of experts had joined this invasion by the Hall of Soul. Almost all of them were strong and vicious characters. Hence, even Feng Zunjia's group also had to put in all their effort at this moment. There were quite a number of human figures in the distant sky far from the star realm. These were some experts from the Central Plains, who had come after hearing the news as well as the spies of some factions. The Hall of Soul had always been an extremely powerful faction on the Central Plains. Each of their action would attract countless number of gazes. Moreover, the Hall of Soul did not hide this mission. Hence, it had attracted quite a number of gazes. This time around, the Falling Star Pavilion has met with a great calamity. It had actually provoked the Hall of Soul to attack it. An old man, who had some relationship with the Falling Star Pavilion, sighed softly. If the Falling Star Pavilion is destroyed, a space would be created amongst the 4 pavilions. My Flowing Cloud Pavilion might be able to grasp the opportunity to fill it. Kai, given that little strength of your Flowing Cloud Pavilion, it is likely that your faction will be annihilated the day after you become one of the 4 great pavilions. What are you saying? Are you seeking death? Humph, do you think I am afraid of you? These places were undoubtedly a complete chaos. Some of the experts or factions that had some grudge with each other would occasionally end up erupting into a fiery hot battle should they argue. However, most of the gazes were currently pausing at the star realm. These small conflict naturally had difficulty attracting much attention. Although these people argued, most of them had a pessimistic attitude towards the fate of the Falling Star Pavilion today. Some of the experts, who possessed some relation with Feng Zunjia and Yarrow Laro, struggled a little before gently sighing. Given the current strength of the Falling Star Pavilion, it was unable to fight with the Hall of Soul. While everyone was feeling regretful for the fate of the Falling Star Pavilion, the finger of the old man lying with his eyes shut on the stone platform suddenly trembled slightly. The moment his finger shook, the space within the stone tower also emitted a crack and exploded, transforming into many spatial fragments. They rolled down and was destroyed. 2 human figures that were covered by vast and mighty Do Qi clusters collided violently in the sky. Frightening earth-shaking noise shot towards the cloud. Even the clouds that floated in the sky had been shaken until they scattered at this moment. No one dared to step within 1,000 feet radius of the 2. With such a terrifying Do Qi attack, it was likely that even an ordinary elite Dozun would have difficulty blocking it. Ha ha, how enjoyable. Xiao Yang violently collided with Old Ghost Jiaxing. The strong and fierce force shook Xiao Yang until he pulled back by over a dozen steps. His face was also covered with a desire to battle. Due to there being too big of a gap when they battled with Old Ghost Jiaxing earlier, he was unable to exchange blows head-on with the other party. All he could do was to rely on his speed and agility to dodge. After which, he began to display his Do Chi attack. It was the first time this kind of bold head-on collision had occurred. Compared with Xiao Yang's loud laughter, old ghost Zhai Xing's expression had become increasingly gloomy. In front of the many experts within the Hall of Soul, he, a Hall of Soul Tianzuan, was unable to finish of a younger generation even after such a long time. He had really lost a great amount of face. You can just try to act strong in front of the old me. The old me shall see just how many lives can the falling star pavilion fork out to let you squander. Old ghost Zhai Xing inhaled a deep breath of air. His tone had suddenly become sinister as he spoke. Xiao Yang's eyes took the opportunity to sweep around the interior of the star realm when he heard this. His heart sunk a little. Although some of the elders in the falling star pavilion were still able to fight with the experts from the Hall of Soul, those ordinary disciples were no match for them. Although they relied on their large number to prevent too many deaths, there would also be occasionally some falling star pavilion disciples dying from the sneak attacks by the experts from the Hall of Soul. I really cannot continue to drag this out. There is a need to finish off this old ghost quickly. Xiao Yang mused a little in his heart. After which, he slowly nodded. He quietly took out a couple of medicinal pills to recover Do Chi from his storage ring and stuffed all of them into his mouth. However, he did not immediately swallow them. After doing all these, his gaze finally turned towards old ghost Zhai Xing. He let out a cold laughter and the Do Chi within his body followed a strange path and circulated rapidly. Following the circulation of his Do Chi, a dark golden light gradually appeared on Xiao Yang's right palm. At the same time, his feet stepped gently on the air and walked towards old ghost Zhai Xing. Seeing Xiao Yang slowly walk over, a ferocious smile also surfaced on old ghost Zhai Xing's face. Xiao Yang adopted the intention of ending this battle as soon as possible and it was the same for him. With his eyesight, he could naturally tell that Xiao Yang was displaying a Do technique. However, he did not care. The only that Xiao Yang could frighten him with was the fire lotus that relied on the merger of 4 types of flames. Other than this, he did not think that Xiao Yang could possess any threat towards him. Even though Xiao Ya's strength could barely fight head-on with him now, he also understood that this ability to fight was something that Xiao Yang had forcefully obtained by using the secret technique. Once the secret technique reached its time limit, it would be an easy matter to kill Xiao Yang. Now, allow the old me to let you see just what is the true strength of a 5-star Dozun. The ferocious expression on old ghost Zhai Xing's face became increasingly wide. Vast and mighty Do Chi spluttered. After which, it transformed into a viscous substance. It wiggled strangely before agglomerating into a dark black ghost head blade. This large blade was extremely strange. A layer of strange dark black crystal covered it. The blade's edge gently cut through the air and a thumb-size crack line suddenly appeared. Old ghost Zhai Xing's hand held the large blade tightly. His gaze was dense as he watched Xiao Yang walking over slowly. Numerous after-images were suddenly formed by the large blade. After which, it hacked down furiously from across the space. Shattering star blade. After old ghost Zhai Xing's low and deep roar resounded over the place, the entire sky suddenly became dark. Countless number of stars were suspended behind old ghost Zhai Xing. After which, they transformed into numerous small rays of light that gathered onto the large blade. Following the gathering of these rays of light, the energy on the large blade also became increasingly frightening. Die. Old ghost Zhai Xing smiled in a dense manner. The blade hacked downwards. Following the fall of this blade, the space in front of him fell apart almost instantly. Numerous spatial crack line appeared. Finally, 1,000 feet large sharp blade glow forcefully split the space in front in an incomparably overbearing manner. It transformed into a lightning that shot explosively towards Xiao Yang. Such a powerful blade glow suddenly appeared in the sky. It immediately attracted the focus of countless number of eyes. A surprised expression immediately surfaced in the eyes. Star-shattering blade. This was the greatest trump card of old ghost Zhai Xing. Countless number of experts had died under this blade. However, after old ghost Zhai Xing had joined the Hall of Soul, he had seldom met any expert who could cause him to once again display this greatest trump card of it. Unexpectedly, it could be currently seen in this place. Old ghost Zhai Xing star-shattering blade can be considered to be at the peak of the DI class Do techniques. Its strength is extremely shocking. There are very few Do technique of the same class that could forcefully receive this attack. That Xiao Yang is likely going to be out of luck. Some of the experts observing from outside of the Falling Star Pavilion involuntarily shook their heads when they saw this situation. Xiao Yang's eyes rippled slightly in the face of this frightening sharp blade glow that could tear the world. His slow forward-moving footsteps also paused for a moment. The dark golden light on his right palm also became increasingly dense. It is too late to think of escaping now. Seeing Xiao Yang pause his footsteps, old ghost Zhai Xing thought that the former was shaken by this blade glow. He immediately laughed coldly. However, Xiao Yang acted as though he did not hear this cold laughter. His gaze focused intently on his right palm. The dark golden color at that spot had reached the limit of its brightness before an extreme deep black glow finally trembled and surfaced. With the surfacing of this black light, the bright golden glow also quickly disappeared. Instead, the black spot became increasingly large. That manner was as though the golden glow's energy was being swallowed by the black light. With the rapid expansion of the black light, Xiao Yang also sensed the do qi swiftly flowing out from his body. He hurriedly swallowed the medicinal pills in his mouth with a gulp. After which, he suddenly raised his head. At this moment, that 1,000 feet large blade glow was already a couple of dozen meters in front of him. The sharp wind caused tiny blood traces to appear on his skin. Consider it your honor to be able to die under the star-shattering blade of the old me. The blade glow approached. At this moment, even with Xiao Yang's fast speed, he was unable to dodge the attack. Old Ghost Zhai Xing involuntarily laughed out loud when he saw this. This hateful brat would finally die in his hands today. A faint smile was slowly lifted on Xiao Yang's face when he heard Old Ghost Zhai Xing's loud laughter. His hand suddenly landed heavily on the empty space in front of him. A dense cry suddenly resounded. Great Heaven Creation Palm. Bang! Xiao Yang's palm landed and the space itself basically collapsed almost instantly. A dark black light sphere that caused one's heart to feel cold swiftly spread from his palm. After which, it violently collided with the sharp blade glow. The two collided. The intense explosion that exceeded everyone's expectations did not appear. That blade glow appeared to have entered a deep bottomless black hole as it charged in. Not the slightest fluctuation was created. Even the rate at which the black light expended was not slowed. Hiss. Everyone inhaled a breath of cool air from shock upon seeing this scene. Their eyes were filled with disbelief. It was likely that few amongst those present could receive that attack of Old Ghost Zhai Xing. Yet that extremely powerful blade glow appeared to be without even the slightest ability to resist under that strange black light sphere. How is this possible? At this moment, everyone's head were blurry. All they could do was to repeatedly mutter in their minds. The disappearance of the blade glow also caused Old Ghost Zhai Xing to be stunned. He suddenly recovered and looked at the familiar black light sphere. Those eyes of his abruptly widened as he exclaimed, Great Heaven Creation Palm? Tian Class Do Technique? How did you obtain it? Old Ghost Zhai Xing had personally witnessed the Great Heaven Creation Palm at the ancient remains back then. That frightening strength was something that was deeply ingrained in his memory even until now. This kind of Tian Class Do technique, which he greatly coveted, had actually landed in Xiao Yang's hand. It's those 3 ribs. Old Ghost Zhai Xing could be considered to have reacted quickly. He almost immediately recalled the 3 ribs that Xiao Yang had ripped from the skeleton that day. Clearly, if the Tian Class Do technique really did exist, it should be on those ribs. This cunning bastard. Old Ghost Zhai Xing's heart was bleeding from regret. His expression became gloomy as he looked at the spreading black light sphere. His body hurriedly pulled back. You wish to escape? Xiao Yang merely laughed coldly when he saw Old Ghost Zhai Xing fleeing. His hand suddenly shook and the black light sphere expansion rate suddenly increased. At the same time, an incomparable suction force surged out from within the dark black light sphere. Under this suction force, Old Ghost Zhai Xing's speed immediately slowed. After which, he was shocked to see the black light sphere spreading over rapidly. The fear of death finally climbed onto his heart at this moment. He clearly understood that if he was sucked into the light sphere, it was likely that even he would die immediately. Bang! Old Ghost Zhai Xing hurriedly unleashed numerous powerful Do Qi pillars at this critical moment where death approached. However, these attacks did not even create a ripple when landing on the light sphere before they strangely disappeared. This kind of endless devouring caused a helplessness to surge up Old Ghost Zhai Xing's heart. Die! Xiao Yang's eyes turned chilly as he watched Old Ghost Zhai Xing, who was in close proximity. The rate at which the light sphere spread suddenly increased. 9th Tianzuan sir, please save me. Old Ghost Zhai Xing, who was unable to escape after using all of his abilities, finally opened his throat at this critical moment. A miserable sharp roar resounded over the sky. This video will end here.